What's up guys, Chase and Wes here, and we are here today to tell you all about the 24-hour race at Glen Helen Raceway. We recently participated in this race. We had a ton of fun most of the time, so we wanted to pass along our information, everything that we learned, just in case you guys want to, for whatever reason, take part in this race.
Yeah, if you guys have not watched it already, so we just did the race. It was an absolute blast, and we did one of our old cheap bike challenges. If you haven't watched some of those already, you should. That's why they need to subscribe to the Rocky Mountain YouTube channel. But we've done 5 miles of hell, which is an epic off-road course down by Green River, Utah. And we've done other series on all clapped out bikes. So we said, you know what? Let's make a budget of $1,500 to buy and fix a motorcycle and go do this 24-hour race. And that's what we did. And we documented the whole thing, and you guys can go watch it. It's a 4-part series, total blast. That being said though, there was a lot that we didn't know about this race. And luckily we had Gabe Kraust, Torture Test Magazine, who had actually Ironman this race the year before on, what was that, KDX?
A DR200, which is insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gabe's an animal. So luckily we had used him on one of our cheap bike challenges before. So we built that relationship. He's a super cool guy. He's got an awesome YouTube channel, and he has a lot of knowledge about these endurance races at Glen Helen. So we picked his brain.
In fact, this was kind of his idea.
Yeah.
He kind of pitched the whole thing to us about the 24-hour race, so.
After we got done with our $1,000 1,000 miles.
Yeah, so anyway, we just want to tell you some of the do's and don'ts of the 24-hour race, what we learned from Gabe, what we learned just from being there, and what we would want you to know and expect if you're going to plan to do the race at any point. And that's the purpose of this whole video.
That's right. So the 24-hour race it's super gnarly. It's part of a 3-part endurance race series that Glen Helen puts on. And they also do a 6-hour, a 10-hour, and those take place earlier in the year. The 24-hour is usually during October. But basically this is one of the toughest and longest races in the nation. And another cool part of it is the fact that it's at Glen Helen Raceway. It's a super famous racetrack, which is pretty cool. Every time we're there racing, I know it definitely feels special for me. I'm sure everybody else feels the same way. So it's really cool in that regard.
All right, so that's when and where it is. So course track and the type of riding you're gonna be doing. So this course that we did was about a 9-mile loop. And it's kind of a mix of everything. You go out and you do a lap on the track. And then when you get done with the track, you actually go up. They call it Yamaha Hill, which is this insanely long, super steep hill. You get to the top of that and you start basically this off-road course that goes along a ridge line. And then you drop in, you do some technical single track riding. You actually have some short stints on pavement, which is actually some of the sketchier parts, believe it or not. And then you even go on to we went on the trophy truck track, and it's a mixture of everything. So
plenty of silt too, plenty of dirt getting poof dusted and thrown up everywhere, which is awesome at night.
Yeah,
it makes it super fun.
And we're gonna talk about how to be better at nighttime, because that to me was probably the biggest wake-up call, was in the middle of the night trying to ride a dirt bike. But so it's a long course, it's a long race, so you wanna be kind of familiar with those types of riding so you're not completely caught off guard. So there's pink ribbons on the course that mark where you need to go. So as long as you're riding at a decent pace, first thing, and that's one thing too, when the race starts, don't go balls to the wall trying to go as fast as you possibly can, because you're probably going to have a bad incident, because you got to know where the track's turning. I had a few times where I went off the track in the first lap because I was just charging too hard.
They've got some hairpin turns that will catch you off guard on the top of peaky ridges, and yeah, it's crazy. So take it easy on your first lap out. That was one of the things. So Chase and I started together, and it's cool because it's such a long race and you want to go fast, but then you're just like, I don't want to ruin this for my team. I don't want to throw it all away on the first lap. And so it is something that you need to be smart about. It's good to have a smart, experienced racer out there for the first lap. That way they can get back to the pits and hand the bike off.
Well, I've never done an off-road race like that, so clearly I wasn't. So I went off the track a few times, but it was fun. So just be chill at the start of the race. You've got 24 hours. You're gonna do a ton of time. And another little tip too, I think we should bring up is, the first rider, and I learned this the hard way, the first guy that goes out should ride enough laps that you can memorize the course. Or each time the rider goes out the first time, do enough laps that you memorize the course. Because for me, I went out and only did 2 laps my first go-ahead, because that's what we kind of discussed. And so I didn't have the course memorized, so the second time I went out, I couldn't ride as fast as I probably could have, because I still didn't have the track memorized. You did what, 3 laps?
For me, I did 3 on the first time out, and I felt faster the fastest on my third lap, which was almost an hour into it. And so that's when you almost start feeling good because you've learned the course and that type of thing.
Yeah.
One more thing to keep in mind with the course is they do, since it's such a long race, they do actually water parts of the track while you're racing on it. And so it was so funny. AJ came back one race and he's like, what? Am I following a water truck around? Because literally everywhere he was going, it was just drenched with water.
And be careful where they water, because a lot of the places, they're gonna throw water down on slick, hard packed sections. And so if you see a wet section on the track, slow down a little bit because it's gonna be slippery, so.
Yep.
Anyway, teams and bikes.
Teams and bikes. So each team is allowed 6 riders and 2 bikes, 1 main bike, 1 backup bike. The whole thing about that is you have to keep 1 bike in impound at all times. And so even if you're fixing, you have to do fixing on the clock with the bike out of impound. And so all that counts against you basically. So you wanna have your bikes ready to go and prepped.
They both have to be the same number, both the bikes, and you set up to 6 riders per team, right?
6 riders per team, and then with the pro teams, you can have 4 riders, 1 bike. So you have to make that bike go the whole distance. And then Ironman, obviously it's 1 rider, 1 bike. So
yeah, but you don't have to have 6 guys. We had 4 guys on each team. You could do 2
right.
guys on 1 team. So it really just depends on who's got the courage to go do the 24-hour race with you. Honestly, little side note, I think 4 riders was kind of like the sweet spot. I feel like if we'd have had 6 riders, I don't feel like we would have ridden enough to feel like you got like the full experience. I think 4 riders was like, you know, you come back after doing 3, 4, 5 laps sometimes you guys are doing, but you're gonna have like still, even with just 4 riders, you're still gonna have like close to a 3-hour gap or so between your next ride.
yeah, for me, that was huge because it's a 9-hour drive down to Glen Helen for us. Like, to make the trip feel worth it, I wanted to get a lot of seat time, and I felt like having the 4 riders, that's 6 hours per rider basically if you're going the whole time. So, and otherwise, you know, you're only going 4 hours if you've got 6 riders. So anyway, yeah, I felt like that was the sweet spot. Some people would think that that is too much riding, especially late at night or super early in the morning. It felt like a lot.
Yeah.
Forcing yourself to go out, but after it was all said and done, I was glad we only did 4.
And you might end up having one teammate who maybe crashes and gets hurt or something like that. So definitely be factoring that in. Maybe one guy doesn't want to ride as much. So definitely a few things you do want to consider with that. All right, mechanic and pit captain.
Yeah, so if you guys, we actually had Aiden Kiefer, Chris's son, come out and race with us on our team. And so Chris and Aiden did a podcast about the 24-hour race, because Chris has done it a bunch of times, so he has a bunch of experience with it too. But he made a few suggestions that we really liked. So having some sort of mechanic or pit captain, the guy that just does all the wrenching. And for us, this was Eric. He didn't ride as much as the other people, but he did basically all the wrenching, which was super nice. He was happy to do it. And it just helps, you know, there was one time I came back and had to change a front tire, but other than that, like, the racers can focus on racing. You have an extra guy there that just focuses on wrenching and keeping the bikes going.
Yeah, if Eric, because Eric was on my team, and to be honest, if he'd have been riding as much as everyone else was, there's no way he would have had the energy, especially in the middle of the night, I think, to do a lot of the stuff that we are doing. You would just honestly be too physically worn out. If you watch our series, all the riders were literally passed out, trying to sleep, and Eric was just up through the whole night, just working on bikes. He rode a few laps, but yeah, definitely, if you have one person who can just do that, like, you know, help gas up the bikes. You know, that's one thing we are going to talk about too, is parking in pit lane. That was something that we learned that luckily we got away with it because we had someone to help us out. But even with just like goggles and lights and just helping get things ready for each of the riders is important too, you know?
Yep, and then the next thing that we are gonna steal from Chris is a wrangler/coordinator. So they talked about this. So they had a spot away from our pits down at the track. And so they would leave and come back and leave and come back, just depending on when Aiden was riding. And it was nice to have them stay on top of when they were supposed to be, because we did, it was basically a 3-hour rotation between when you would ride and ride again. And so it's nice to just have somebody staying on top of that, like who's coming next. We should get them, you know, if it's during the night, you can wake them up, get them ready, you know, get some food in them, and basically tell them what the schedule is. So.
Yeah, during the daytime, it's no big deal because everyone's awake, everyone's excited, and you're ready to go as soon as like the person comes into pit lane. But at nighttime, Yeah, if somebody's not going to come get you, you're going to be asleep when a guy's coming in expecting to change riders, and you're going to lose a ton of time. So
yeah, you felt that pressure on yourself, really,
Yeah.
because we didn't have that person. It was just keep track of your order and who's going out next, and do it. It's on you basically. But another thing that I really like about that is somebody that can watch the lap times and watch what's going on as far as live timing goes. Gabe did that a lot. He was pointing out, here's the gap between our two teams, or you just set a 18-minute lap time or something like that. It was nice to have somebody that could relay that information as the race was going on. So
yeah, and real quick before we talk about what bikes are good for this, I would say, just kind of think about it now, is like at the start of the day, even if you're 15 minutes behind, don't stress out about it, because you have 24 hours. Like 15 minutes is the difference of getting a flat tire or somebody just taking a little bit longer in the pits, and especially at nighttime, things are going to slow down. It's funny because we are so excited. Like, we were sitting there fully geared up, waiting for the guy to come into pit lane to hop on the bike, and then he'd take off for another lap, and you're all mad about it. And then at nighttime, you'd sit there in your gear at the fire, and the guy would come rolling in, and you'd be like, all right, give me a minute to find my helmet, find my goggles before you get on the bike. So don't stress about it too much, unless it's really close.
Well,
race.
keep it fun. Yeah, keep it enjoyable. If you're not having a good time, then what are you doing there? So, yeah. So let's talk about what bikes would be good for this. So obviously, we were constricted to a budget, and so we ended up with a couple WR250s, older Yamaha two-strokes, which was actually pretty dang good. But if we're talking modern bikes, which most of you guys are going to be doing, it really just depends. I mean, a full-on moto bike with stiff suspension is not going to be your friend.
Honestly, these bikes, with how old they are, 94, 95 WR250s, the suspension's way soft and super plush, and there's no jumps on this track. Like, Glen Helen has a few jumps, but they're not that big. Honestly, beginner riders can do them. So you don't need to worry about having suspension that's so stiff, like you're going to be going super fast and jumping stuff. That's not what you want to be worried about. It's plushness and comfort, because honestly, these bikes, I think, were better than like my 2021 Honda 450 would have been, just for comfort.
Yeah, over the course of 24 hours, it's beating you up. So you want comfort in the suspension. So obviously, like a 250F, a modern thing with soften the suspension up a little bit, that would be good, unless you want to go fast. You want to go 450. So
yeah,
I don't know. Really,
power-wise, I would say probably like minimum 250. Like, unless you're like a really light person, you got maybe 125. What do you think? Because some of the hills are big. And even like in some of the back sections at nighttime, there's a lot of sections where it's steep uphill, it's super rough, it's silty, and I got stuck a couple of times. And to be honest with you, if I'd have been on like a smaller bike than a 250 bore, it would have been hard to get up those hills. So that is one thing you got to factor in too, is like, there's going to be some spots that are hard to get out of.
Yeah, it's crazy, because Yamaha Hill, they actually hold hill climb competitions there.
Do they really?
So I didn't know that. It's pretty dang steep. So you got to have some power to get you up those.
Probably my favorite part
Glen
of the track,
Helen hills.
Just wide open all the way to the top of this hill, unless you're Kobe and the bike breaks at the very top.
Yep. Okay, so spare parts and what are the must-haves? So mooses would have been nice, but obviously we didn't have budget for that. So we had ultra heavy duty tubes. We only got one flat.
Which was a front.
During the whole time we were there. So that was pretty lucky. That's obviously what you want to have. Handguards, skid plate, oversized tank is nice. Every time we switched riders, we gassed the bike up. And so we were just on that schedule, which was nice to do. We didn't have to really worry about it.
Yeah, you definitely want to have a lot of gas though. We actually surprised ourselves at how much gas we went through.
Yeah.
And this is another thing I was talking about earlier as far as your pit setup goes. We had to have somebody go do gas runs for us during the night, because we were going to run out of gas probably. And so
twice we had to, 3 times we had to go get gas,
and
right?
in pit lane, you can't just drive out because riders are coming through it. And the way that they park all the trailers, everyone blocks everybody in. So it's beneficial in case you need to make a run for food, drinks, gas, whatever it is. Have a vehicle that is well outside pit lane that you can get to and easily leave the track and come back. Because if we didn't have that, it would have been really hard to go get gas.
Okay, well, spare parts that I want to say you should probably bring is an extra wheel set if you have the ability. Extra tires, tubes, clutch, spark plugs, levers, top end for 2 strokes. We ended up doing a top end during our race. which probably isn't normal. I don't think that'd be your strategy going into it normally.
Well, our jetting was too lean.
Yeah.
That's partially our fault because it just melted.
It was barely too lean. It was getting worked hard, right? And up those hills, yeah.
Tons of air filters. There's a ton of silt pockets, and your air filters are going to get clogged really quick. So bring lots of them and make them pre-oiled so it's easy just to take them out of the bag and throw it in. If you're trying to find gloves and oil an air filter on the spot, that sucks. So.
Yep, and then gas. I think we had 5 cans, and we had to do 3 runs to the gas station. Yeah, we ran through a ton of gas. It was insane. I think it surprised all of us.
Maybe these 2-strokes just eat a little bit more than some of the other bikes, but have enough.
They're not as efficient. Yeah, that's for sure.
Ooh, here's a big one. Lighting.
Let's talk about lighting.
Probably one of the most important things, because this is what caught me most off guard. I've never really done night riding. Like these guys, Wes and these guys have done a lot of trail riding at nighttime, so they kind of knew what to expect. I was in for a rude awakening. So because with these bikes and with our budget, it was just we just didn't have budget to do as much lighting as anybody would want. We had lights on the bike, so we had the Thumper jockeys on the bike that I was riding. They had the Baja Designs headlight, which is, you would think is gonna be bright enough because that thing is incredibly bright, and the helmet light kit. But would you have done it differently though? What would you have done?
Yeah, so I think that's where most of your budget needs to go. It was kind of funny because with these cheap bikes, our priority was getting them running good enough to do this race, and lighting was like the afterthought. It was the last thing we did. So unfortunately, that kind of bit us in the butt late at night, which is not what you want to be doing at midnight, is working on your light setup. So yeah, I would say spend as much as you can. We were having some issues with our wiring on the WR with the Baja Design, so it didn't work as good as it should have. But
yeah, our light was battery powered. We had our connector coming off, so do some test runs at nighttime. Like go find somewhere to ride that's pretty rough, because yeah, both teams had our lights shut off while somebody was riding, which not only sucks but safety factor. And aside from the bike lights, you've got to have a helmet light kit as well. And so shout out actually to Thumper Jockey. You got to have a helmet light just because your bike's going to show what's out in front of you, but your helmet light kit's going to see where you want to look, so you can look ahead and see the trail. And they're way more important than you would think. So bike lights, helmet lights.
You really don't notice too if you've ridden with a GoPro, it probably feels the same on your helmet, but like you tuck the batteries into your backpack and you really don't notice. It's not a nuisance on your helmet. So.
Yeah, you're focused on so many other things than like helmet lights weighing you down. Like that's the last thing I was worried about.
Yep.
There's a new rule that we had to do, which was we didn't learn until we were down there. So this would have been good to know. What was it? The blinking
so
lights,
you got to have a red safety tail light on back. So this is especially important. I mean, with any off-road racing, like you want to be as safe as you can, right? The whole idea behind this is so if the fast guy's coming up behind you, they can see you. And also if you go down for whatever reason and your bike shuts off and your headlight stops, then people will still be able to find you. So we just bought those little bicycle clip-on tail lights or whatever. Yeah, I don't know what you call them, but they're red. And you just clip it onto your backpack in the back. Yeah. So that's a new rule for this year. I'm sure they'll bring that back. I felt safer. Anyway, and then one other thing I want to bring up with lighting is Gabe and then a few other sources that I found with off-road racing. Something you can do is paint your front fender a flat black.
Ooh, good tip.
And that way it doesn't reflect light as much. So unfortunately, these WRs, well, all the Yamahas from that era had white plastics and we didn't really have a choice, and it's just something that we didn't think about beforehand. But the glare off these fenders is horrible. And so that would have been huge for us, I think.
I'm laughing because my team, our bike had one headlight on one side that kept drooping down, and it would just shine on the front fender. And it was so freaking bright that I would have to like tilt my head up because it was just reflecting into my eyes the whole time. So that's another reason you go out and test, to make sure stuff like that's not going to happen to you on the trail. So it's kind of funny.
That is funny.
All right. Changing rider strategy. We kind of talked about that earlier.
Yep.
Like I said, you decide how many laps you guys want to trade off. There's no limit. You can do 1 lap each. Like I said, for us, minimum of 3 laps, minimum, your first time you go out to memorize a track, and then you go from there.
Yeah, we just kept on a 3-lap rotation literally the whole time, and we stayed on that schedule. It was actually pretty nice because we each knew we had to go out 6 times. It was just nice to be on that schedule. I would recommend that.
Yeah, my team just kind of was winging it.
You were willy-nilly.
I kept just doing 2 laps because, and to be honest with you, here's one advantage is doing 2 laps at a time. I don't feel like I wore myself out as much as some of the other guys like AJ and Kobe, who was on my team, and even, well, Eric didn't ride as much, but those guys were like pretty delirious throughout the nighttime in some stages where I felt pretty good the whole time. So maybe it's because I wasn't riding 4 or 5 laps at a time. But again, that's just going to come down to team preference. All right, pit setup. We touched on this some, but there's definitely some important things to know. Makes a huge difference. And this is a lot of stuff that we just learned throughout the night and during the day of like, holy crap, if we were going to do this again, we got to do this, this, and this better. Get there early a day early to set up. That's important. The gate, I don't remember what time the gates open, but they open the day before on Friday.
I think it was noon.
Noon or something like that. And trust me, like, we were luckily there early, one of the first in line, but that line gets there and it fills up quick. There's no stress because there's no practice, but if you don't want to sit in a line
And
forever.
it's not like there's a bad spot on pit row. It just makes it easier if you're pulling trailers in and stuff to get set up if you're there early. So yeah, and then just one other thing I want to mention with that is when you're getting set up, keep the nightlife in mind because when it gets dark, that's most of the race. You just got to have lights and generator and all that stuff to be able to work on the bikes and stay motivated during the night. It is
cool. Like I heard they used to have like competitions almost of like who could have the coolest pit set up. We just had some like basic floodlights in our generator, but there was pits that had Christmas lights and all this cool stuff, and it makes it inviting that you want to go hang out with people that have cool lights. So if you want to have like a cool pit set up and kind of stand out.
Yeah, I actually packed Christmas lights. I was gonna set them up, but man, things happen fast. We were dealing with some bike stuff and anyway, it didn't happen, but it would have made it fun.
Another thing that we learned too is each rider, it's beneficial to have their own spot within your pits. So for us, we had picnic benches that were all lined out and it just basically became the most clustered freaking junk drawer you've ever seen because we had multiple toolboxes up on top. And by the time when guys were getting tired, everyone was just dropping their gear all over the place. I admit, like there was multiple times where I literally couldn't find my goggles. I didn't know where my freaking helmet was. And it was because everyone was just like so unorganized. It just became a crapshoot. And so I would say,
well, your motivation just drops so drastically during the race. So like starting it off solid and having a spot for each rider that they can just designate to put their stuff. And we had camera guys too that, you know, even raised that chaos and just disorganization. So staying organized as much as you can. One other thing with that is we took a gas fire pit. So a little bit with the temperatures and stuff down at GH. It's in October, so it gets chilly at night, and we were all sure glad that we had that gas fire pit.
Yeah, props.
I would take some way to heat people up because people are going to get pissed if they are cold and miserable, especially during the night. And so that was a lifesaver for us. Comfy camp chairs. So people, I can't tell you how many people were sleeping in the camp chairs. Chase was one of them.
Yeah.
Everybody was zonking. So having some comfy camp chairs is important. Another thing is like bring a camp trailer. It would be so nice. It would have been so nice. We were just in enclosed trailers and stuff like that, but it would have been nice to go have a table that you could sit at, a comfy bench or something like that to get out of or inside and stuff like that, and just be able to eat, prep, relax, do all that stuff inside actual camp trailer.
I never really thought about it, but dude, if it had rained on us, we're screwed.
Yeah.
We would have had vans to sit in and underneath a couple easy ups, but like all our gear was outside. Like bring a lot of easy ups too. That's one thing is we had 2, 3 easy ups. And depending just on how many riders you have, just make sure you have a very big covered area. So if it did rain on you, you can get all your gear underneath the easy ups. That would be really important.
Going back to just having extra people there. So if you have a couple people there that aren't racing and just are willing to help out, somebody to help with food and just keeping everybody fueled that way. We had one of the cameramen actually cooked for us. We had burgers one night, right? I missed out on them because I was racing. That sucked bad. But having somebody to help with that and just make sure everybody's getting food and fueled like that is really important. Yeah, it would have been nice for us.
As a rider, I ain't gonna be cooking for everybody. Like you will not have the motivation to try and cook dinner at nighttime. So yeah. That's important.
One other thing to remember is a gas mat. So when you're gassing up the bikes, you're supposed to have a gas mat to gas them on. So remember that.
Yep. And then there's 50-mile-an-hour speed limit through the pits. They're going to explain that to you a whole lot because there is a riders meeting before you start the race, and they go over all the rules, but you will be penalized if you do break that. And trust me, I was impressed. Like, they had dudes that were rolling around all night long, like looking to bust people, like whether you were cutting the track, which we'll talk about because yes, I did it once and I got busted. Cutting the track, speeding through the pits, all that stuff. So, mind the rules because they are out to look to see what's going on. There was one team that was like doing like 15-minute lap times.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they were out like trying to find these guys and they probably DQ'd
That's
them.
not real. That's not real.
No.
There's no way. A couple other things I want to mention with that is cornhole, and just like for the people that have the energy to and want to have a good time and relax in the pits, you could have some games there to just keep them entertained and stuff like that. And then one other thing is just a way to get around pits. So Kiefer mentioned in his podcast, e-bikes, they were able to go out to the back sections of the track that you could access on pavement. And they said that was super cool and worth it. So if you guys want to take like a golf cart, e-bikes, just anything to get around the pits a little easier would be good.
Yep. Food and drinks. Bring more than you think. It's 24 hours. You're always snacking. You're always drinking. So trust me, you probably can't have too much food. Well, it's not a bad thing. So kind of talked about how you want to have somebody there to help cook. But aside from that, just a ton of snacks, stove or a grill to make lunch or dinner.
Yep.
Lots of fluids. Please stay hydrated while you're out there having a good time because it's probably like you're going to want to just sit and not do anything while you're not riding. So bring lots of fluids and hydrate really good before.
Shout out to Glen Helen and the race promoters. They do a complimentary pancake breakfast, which wasn't just that. They have fruit, coffee, OJ. It was awesome. They do that from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. and literally that's what got me through the night. I could not wait until I got off the bike, could go get some breakfast and stuff. So, okay, let's talk about schedule. So we already mentioned the schedule that we were on. Each rider did 6 hours with having 4 riders. Basically, you want to just set up how you want to do that. We organized it and just did a batting order, basically. So who goes first and just stay in that order as long as you can. Obviously, if somebody goes down, gets injured or something like that, you're going to have to adjust that accordingly. But that way, everybody is, knows the plan, basically.
Wake up before you're supposed to go out. Like I said, your motivation will start dropping. So towards the end of the night, riders would pull in and some riders would honestly still be laying down in a bed. And then you wake them up and it takes 10 minutes for them to be conscious again.
That wasn't our team.
Kobe's
That
looking
was
away
your
behind
team,
the camera
dude.
right now. AJ was hiding in a van, hoping we wouldn't find him anymore because he didn't want to go out and ride. So just try and wake up early. But that's where you got to have that wingman or the person who's going and finding people.
The wrangler.
The wrangler.
The wrangler,
Thank you.
yeah.
Because I felt like I was kind of the wrangler a lot for my team because I was waking Kobe up. I was trying to get AJ because I didn't sleep during the night. All right, cost. It's $300 per team. It's $500 for a pro team. And if you're doing the Ironman, it's $150 per rider doing the Ironman. It's a $20 gate fee per person. Yeah. That cost caught us off a little off guard. We rolled up, and luckily, people in each van had some cash because I didn't. So I thought they were going to charge per vehicle, but it's per person to get into the gate. So if you have 5 people in your van and you show up, you got to have $100 to get into the gate.
You're good at math. Congratulations, dude.
Yes. I graduated high school.
Other tips that we wrote down. So live scoring. Thank goodness Gabe had gave us this information and experience.
Yes.
Because he told us, what to expect with that. So you can access live scoring on your phone and just follow that, which was super nice to do. You can check where you're ranking in your class, check your lap times, all that stuff, which was pretty dang awesome. I'll let you take this next one about cutting course, Chase.
Okay, let me give you a little background here. It was literally my last ride of the 24 hours. It was the last 30 minutes of the day, and there was one section that is you could, if you wanted to, you could go down the paved road and it doesn't even cut off the track, you just go parallel. And it was probably about a couple hundred yards, and then you pop back on the track. The one time I did it because I was over it, I was tired, and I just was trying to find some smooth real estate. Of course, there was a guy from the course waiting there because there's a lot of people doing it, unfortunately. And he stopped me and he called my number in, and penalize me. I wasn't super worried about being penalized, but there was another guy that was with me that was cutting like a half mile of the course off going down the road, and that guy was like getting super busted. And then you'll also notice too that throughout the night, people start to make up some cheater lines. Like everyone's following the course at the first part of the day, and then later on you'll start to notice lines are getting a little bit more inside or a little bit more inside, and then you're looking and you're just like, really? Like that's not even close. So it's basically Scout's honor, because there's gonna be a lot of parts of the track where nobody's watching you, and it's just, you can do it if you want. It's up to the rider.
It comes down to don't cheat yourself. I mean, yeah, it's natural to start cutting a little bit of corner here and there, but you're there to have fun and have a good time. Like, unless you're the pro class, I don't really see the incentive of it other than save a little energy maybe, but
yeah,
I'm just like, don't cheat yourself. Have a good time, ride the whole course.
Yeah, so anyway, I can learn from that firsthand. Go ahead.
Sorry, another thing that made this super fun is just having the two teams. So Chase and I were kind of team captains of our team. Like I said, we had eight racers there, 4 guys on each team, and that made it super fun because we were battling back and forth at the first, and then they had to do a top end, which set them back pretty good, but it just made it so fun because you're there with your buddies, you're talking smack when you get off the bikes and talking how crazy the course is and all that stuff. So I don't know, it was just such a good atmosphere and a good time for us, and that was one of my favorite things about it. So if you can replicate that.
And another note on that too is because when you're out there riding, you don't know when you're out there on the track or the off-road course, like you don't know who you're riding with. Like you could pass 20 dudes but you have no idea if that person's in your class or whatever. So it's a little bit different in that aspect. So like he was saying, if you have 2 teams, you're not just racing another team that exists, but you don't even know who they are on the track. You're racing your friends too, so it motivates you even more, I would think, throughout the whole night, because now you're talking crap and racing your buddies the whole time, versus like, oh, this team that we don't even know is 5 minutes ahead, but you don't even know who they are, so. End of the day though, it's an off-road race. You are there to compete if that's what you're there for, but you gotta have the camaraderie. If a rider's down, stop and help him out. Like, it's not gonna hurt you to stop for 5 minutes if a rider's down and you feel like he's gonna be injured when you've got a 24-hour race. I would want somebody to stop for me. I stopped for a couple riders. So maybe unless you're the pro class, don't ignore people if they're down. Make sure people are all right.
Okay.
It's just, we're all there to have fun. So don't be that guy that thinks you can't spare 30 seconds or a minute off your lap time to slow down and make sure that a rider's okay.
Yeah, if you've never really raced off-road races, that's kind of how they are. It's an expectation. If somebody's down, stop and make sure they're okay. It's a race, but it's not, it's not worth taking that risk. So anyway.
Plan for all kinds of weather. We got lucky we didn't have any rain. The temperature in the afternoon was nice. It was like 70s or something like that. During the nighttime, it did get a little bit chilly. So make sure you have a sweatshirt or a jacket, some dry clothes. Bring lots of riding socks. Your feet are gonna get hot and sweaty, and putting on sweaty boots and just having sweaty socks sucks. Underwear, just anything that's gonna get sweaty, bring lots of extra changes.
Yeah, socks
you go through a
especially.
lot.
Socks and gloves.
Yeah, and then the last thing is, kind of thing is every year they do something a little bit different on the start. When we did it, we had to have both hands, can't do it right now, on top of our heads, fingers locked, and then dead engine start. So as soon as he raises the flag, you start your bike, you go. Wes almost ripped a whole shot, kicking over the 2-stroke. I had done like 3 practice starts and fired up first kick every time. And then of course, when the flag goes, I was like dead last. Like it was like 4 or 5 kicks. So that was great. But I don't know.
It's so fun.
It is.
Oh my gosh. Starting at Glen Helen Raceway is just, it's the best.
I'll tell you right now, this race is so much fun. You will hate yourself and contemplate life's decisions at about 3 in the morning, like AJ and a lot of guys did. But then you get done with the race and you're still pretty over it in the morning time. You're like, oh my gosh, like I am not doing that again. But then give it a week and like everything else you've done in life.
Maybe 2.
Okay, maybe 2. And you're already literally talking about next year's 24-hour race, what you're gonna do different. Some guys like me bring up the whole Ironman thing.
Oh my gosh.
Like, let's be real here, I'm probably not gonna do it. But I am looking so forward to the 24-hour race next year. So I don't know. I think you owe it to yourself, if you've been wanting to do it, freaking get a team together, you don't have to ride your freaking nice bike that you maybe don't want to put a ton of hours on or whatever.
Yeah, do a budget.
Yeah, do a budget. Maybe have a group of friends all chip in. You can go buy a bike together or something. Do something like we did, you know? Make it a little bit more of a challenge with what bike you're gonna be on. I don't know, but it's a blast. Like, looking back at it, watching the video series, you've got to watch that. It's just like, it's one of those things that you'll never forget. You'll remember it your whole life, and you'll probably want to do another one, no matter how bad it sucked.
One thing I do want to point out though is freaking shout out to the Ironman class. Those guys are on another level.
How many laps did the winner do?
More than we did.
More than we did as a team.
Yes, it is insane. I don't think he braked one time, like got off the bike. It was just riding.
That's what's gnarly about Ironman is like I think there's probably less than 10 dudes maybe that did it.
This year was pretty big, and I blame Gabe from last year because he pumped it up. But and if you are crazy enough to attempt that, good luck. Maybe we'll see you there. I don't know.
We
haven't made that up
We'll
yet,
see you there. I need some redemption. But anyway.
Yeah, those are our tips for the 24-hour race, things that we learned and things that we figured you guys might want to know if you are looking into doing this race. And like we said, if you haven't already, check out our cheap bike series that we did on it. It was so much fun and we had a blast.
Yeah, and get subscribed if you haven't already, because not only can you watch that, but we're already brainstorming some other cheap bike challenges that we want to do here in the future. So we're going to be doing more, and plus we're just the best place to go to see awesome dirt bike content.
Oh, yeah. So much fun.
Yeah, got to do it.
Okay,
Anyway,
thanks for watching, guys.
Okay, see you next time.
See ya.